questions, I understood that I did not emphasize enough the end of Pedic tests, which is why there was a bit of a confusion. So when I wrote the questions, I wrote them in a way that a little bit corrects that difficulty. Okay, so I'm going to set the stage. We're going to read the questions. Girls, we finished Pedic Yud last week, okay? Which means that the topic of today is Pedic Aleph and Pedic Yud Aleph, which is a lot of reading. But let's do the questions first, okay? Question 79. What relationship is there between our learning of Pnimiyas HaTorah? What is our learning Chassidus? And there's two ways to understand learning Chassidus. Number one, you learn a little bit on the level of Hanacha. Number two, you learn a lot, but it's on the level of Hasaga, as we discussed at length in the last two classes. Be it a little or a lot, that's what I just said. And our relationship to learning Nigla. How does Chassidus inform our Nigla? So the Rebbe says, the last two lines of Pedic Tes Kindalach, if you know Hebrew, look inside. When you learn Chassidus, it makes that your Nigla should have an inverted property, number one. V'gam, number two, habirur shayedei limud hanigla, the correction of the world which your Nigla affects. So, although Nigla corrects the world by going into the world and speaking about the darkness, it's be'efer naila yeseh. It's on a higher level. The answer to question 78 is two things. When a person learns Nigla, it's limited. When you learn Chassidus, and then you learn Nigla, your Nigla has an infinite property. I want to tell you a story, even though I don't have time. I really don't have time. One of the girls said to me that next week a lot of you are busy. So I'm giving you a test on Thursday, okay? You have time to prepare. I'm giving you a test on Thursday. You're going to grade it this Thursday. We're not, Pedic Aleph and Yud Aleph are not on the test. Just base till Yud. Do your sheet, you'll be fine, okay? And this is the final. I'm not going to give you another test. She wants to give another test. I'll try to chop it on. I want to learn part of the B'Shalom. I want to see how that works out. Last semester, I got sick. I didn't even finish the Maimah. I felt very bad. Mit Hashem, because I'm gesund, come and learn about Chassidus. Beis Hashem is Barach. But I had to tell you this Maiseh. There's a Chassidus called Racham Strifk. Racham Strifk Chassidus. Racham Strifk is Chernobyl. But Racham Strifk Rebbes are Einiklach of the Middle Rebbe. The family is intermarried a bunch of times. The Friedrich Rebbe met in Israel, Rab Nochemchke, Racham Strifk. When the Friedrich Rebbe met him, he was almost 100. And the Friedrich Rebbe met him almost 100 years ago. And the Friedrich Rebbe said he didn't believe that there was such tzaddikim still alive today. He was mishtaimim from him. And a relationship developed between the family of Schneerson and the Tversky, Racham Strifk, which has gone on now for 5 or 6 generations. They were very close, always. Mrs. Tversky, your Mora, Mrs. Tversky, her husband is a Racham Strifk Einikol. He's a grandson of Racham Strifk. So, there was Reb David Racham Strifk who passed away in Tafshin Yud, and then there was Reb Yechon Racham Strifk. He passed away in Tafshin Lamed Ches. He came to America in 1953, Tafshin Gimel, to make a wedding for his son, whose name was Reb Itzikel, who just recently passed away, with the daughter of the Skved Rebbe. Skved is also Chernobyl. These are all cousins. And they came to see the Rebbe in Yechidus. When they came with Yechidus, they get married very young. I mean, even by Hasidic standards, they get married officially 16, 17. And even now, especially the Rebbe She'eniklach, he couldn't have been more than 16 or 17 years old, a young bacher, but he was an Einikol from Rebbe's. He probably had a good head, a good geleret. He was a big Yirei Shamayim. And then the Yechidus, the Rebbe asked him what he's learning. So he told the Rebbe he has 2 chavrus, he's learned 2 different Mesichtas. So the Rebbe said to him, which Mesichta would you like to talk? Which were you comfortable? So he told the Rebbe his preference. And the Rebbe began to discuss what he was learning. He asked him a question. The question that the Rebbe asked him was a famous question. A lot of the Rishonim asked the question, and he gave the Rebbe an answer. He told the Rebbe an answer from one of the Mefarshim. So the Rebbe asked him a second question. The second question had no answer. He didn't know an answer. So he tells the Rebbe, I don't know. And the Rebbe tells him as follows. This question has no answer in Nigla. It only has an answer in Pnimius, in Kabbalah and Chassidus. And it's a proof to the idea that Torah is one. In other words, we learn Torah in layers. Pshat separately, Drush separately, Remes separately, Drush separately, Soid separately. But each level of Torah has its edge, has its ktei, and when you have a question on one level, there's no answer, you have no choice but to go up to a higher level, and then when you have a question on the second level and you can't find an answer, you have no choice but to go up to the third level. So the Rebbe told him, this question does not have an answer in Nigla, only a Pikabola, and the Rebbe gave him an answer and blew his mind. It was like beautiful, it was clear, it was beautiful, lichtig. When he walked out of the Rebbe, he was a young man, he said, and he told the story to his nephew, he told the story to Rabbi Twersky, who told it to me, I heard the story secondhand. When I walked out of the Rebbe's office, I felt like the Rebbe could take any part of Torah and do the same thing. He could show you the edge of Nigla, he could show you where Nigla runs out of answers, and the answer comes from Chassidus. The unity of Torah, you should know in the Rebbe's Kutasichis, many times the Rebbe will ask a question, and give an answer, and slug it up, and give a second answer, and slug it up, and give a third answer. If you're paying attention, what the Rebbe is doing is he's not saying that the previous answer is wrong. This is an answer on the level of Pshat. This is an answer on the level of Halacha. This is the answer on the level of Lomdus. And this is the answer on the level of Chassidus. And the higher you go, the more beautiful it becomes. And that's the meaning of these words. When you learn Chassidus, then Nigla becomes believable, because Nigla isn't believable. Nigla is limited. And Nigla is limited means a person could know all of Nigla. And there's going to be questions on the level of Nigla that are not answered, because on Nigla they're not considered questions. But Chassidus makes it infinite. So the Rebbe says at the end of Perek Tes, two things. How does learning Chassidus change Nigla? Number one, it gives Nigla an infinity, because the end of the Nigla is the Nister. If you learn Nigla correctly, you reach a certain point where there are questions without answers, that the only way to answer them is al pi Chassidus. Number two, when you learn Nigla deals with the world, and it elevates the world to the limud. But when you learn Nigla, you also learn Chassidus, the elevation of the world, the beater of the world is better. Now the reason I'm stopping and talking about this is because somebody asked me a question, and she's really right, that the way I presented the Maimed, that point was not sufficiently flushed out, and it created a question in her mind. So I'm doing it now. At the end of Perek Tes, the Rebbe explains how the Limud of Chassidus, a little bit on the level of Anocha, or a lot of it on the level of Asaga, informs the Nigla. Okay? Anybody want to say anything? Next question, 79. In Perek 10, the Rebbe asks a question on the ideas mentioned in Perek Tes. What is that question? The question is that when you learn Chassidus, and you let your Chassidus affect your Nigla, it takes away something from the purity of the Chassidus. Chassidus is better when it's pure. When you link your Nigla and your Chassidus, which is the Rebbe's favorite subject, right? The two Lubavitch and Rabbeim, their whole inyan was to join Nigla and Nister. Does anybody know which ones? The Tzemach Tzedek, the same name, and the Rebbe. The Rebbe's whole koch was to show how Torah is one. The Mittler Rebbe didn't do it at all. And even the other Rebbeim. The Rebbe's inyan was to show how Nigla Nister is Torah Achas, and he'll always blame it on the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek. The Shaila is, when you use Chassidus to enrich the Nigla, you also diminish the light of the Chassidus. It's true. Because when Chassidus is pure, it's very esoteric, it's very above. When you're using the Chassidus to enlighten the Nigla, it seems to take away something from the Chassidus. And basically the question is it worth it? Right? That's the question. That's question 6.
Like that would say it's so straight out.
On Pesach, you eat matzah. Yeah. Matzah is called milchad menutz. It's called the bread of faith. In Kabbalah, it's called das of katnos. You know what das of katnos means? You know Hashem, you don't understand Him, but you know Hashem without understanding Him. If your knowledge came after understanding, that would be das of gadlus. If you knew Hashem but you don't understand it, that's called das of katnos. That's how kids are. Okay. So now, a simple answer would be Das of godless takes away from the emunah compared to das of godless. If you have das after your understanding, which is how Chassidus explains Shavuos, which is why Shavuos, you eat chometz, it takes away from the purity of the emunah. Because the minute you mix your seichel in, the emunah becomes less crisp and simple. But that's the job, right? Now that's not an answer to your question. It doesn't explain how nigla diminishes light of Chassidus, but it explains how seichel diminishes the light of what Chassidus wants to accomplish. So take it to another level, okay? The Gemara says, a baby is not going to know and understand who his father is until he eats bread. It's an age thing. A baby knows his mother as soon as he's born. Now there's a guy around, but he doesn't understand the meaning of the word father until he's old enough to eat bread. When the child eats bread, so he knows his father. So Chassidus brings this Gemara, that the way to explain what it means that you eat matzah, it gives you das. But because it's matzah, it's das the katlas. And if you would eat chometz, it would give you das. But we das the godless is to quote this Ma'ameh Chazal, that when a child is old enough to know his father, child enough to eat bread, this is when he has the maturity to have the das to know who his father is. Now, this Gemara helps the Ma'ameh. The Gemara helps the Ma'ameh. The Gemara helps us understand that there's a concept of a person not understanding and having das. Okay, but the Gemara also diminishes the Ma'ameh. Because what the Gemara is doing is giving you sort of a logical framework or a framework of time to when you acquire das, and we're using it to inform emunah. So in one way, the Gemara helps us understand the emunah, but in the other way, the Gemara is complicating the emunah. I'm giving you an example. If it's not so good, the first example was for sure good. That when you use your seichel, it takes away from the purity of the emunah. So the Rebbe's question in 79 is, if a person uses Chassidus to enhance his nigla, doesn't that take away something from the nigla, from the Chassidus? And you want an example of this? Learn the Mittel Rebbe's. Learn the Mittel Rebbe's, and then learn the Tzemach Tzedek's or the Rebbe's. You see, right? The Mittel Rebbe's is like swimming in an ocean. It's so holy. It's brilliant. It's very, very smart, but it's very pure. Then you learn the Kut Sichaf. The Rebbe can't get away from the Gemara. Every mimer the Rebbe throws in the Gemara. The Rebbe's need to combine Nigla and Nista is almost in his DNA. I love it because it's not that we need confirmation. The Rebbe always throws in a Gemara or a halacha into the Nigla to the Maimer, to show you how it's Teira Achas, yeah. But the experience of being involved in spirituality is diminished when you throw in a Nigla. It's just the way it is. So why are we doing it? Right? Or how is it worthwhile? I'll give you another dugma, and I'm going to hate myself for this because I really want to finish the Maimer today. There's a Maimer from the Rebbe of Svartem, which a lot of girls learn. The first was Svartem from Tafshin Yiraf. You know that Maimer? Anybody learn that Maimer? There's a Maimer from the Rebbe. It's not Muga, which means two things. Number one, you can understand it. And number two, Chas v'Shalom, God forbid you should learn it. In this Maimer, the Rebbe brings that a person can be mevared his midas only if he goes down to the particular midas. You can't be mevared the whole midah, and you certainly can't be mevared your moyach. And he brings a moedendike nigle. There's a Rabbeinu Yerucham, there's a Rish do Paskins. When we count Sfira, there's two counts. You count days and you count weeks. So Rabbeinu Yerucham says that in the time of Golos, there's no carbon name. The counting weeks is only the Rabbanon, and the counting days is the Erais. So the Rebbe says, you know why? Because as Mana Golos, you can't fix the big midas. You can only fix the individual midas. That's why in Halacha, the individual days of Sfiras, the Erais. The weeks of Sfiras are the Rabbanon. It's not, and this is the Rebbe's add. He's adding to the Maimer Nigle, which beautifies the Nigle, and it shows the Ach. It's a Goinish corollary. I mean, only the Rebbe would even see that connection. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. But it's joining Nigla and Chassidus. The shaila of the Maimer is that L'chaira, when you're joining Nigla and Chassidus, the Nigla is benefiting, but the Chassidus is suffering. Now, girls, before we continue, can any of you give me the answer to this question in one word? One word. Kavana. You know what kavana means? That's what the Eibishter wants. We want to stay in the midbar, and the Eibish wants to go into Eretz Yisrael. It's been going on for a long time. It's the kavana. Keep going. Question 80. Can you explain the question a little better? I guess I did. Chassidus is so spiritual, and when you use Chassidus to bring an addition to Nigla, the Nigla a little bit darkens the spirituality, the light of the Chassidus. How does he answer it? It's what the Eibishter wants. It's what the Eibishter wants. The Eibishter created the world to fix it. The Eibishter created even Chassidus to fix the world. Yeah, but Chassidus is above correction. The answer is Chassidus is above correcting the world directly. But Chassidus is very involved in correcting the world indirectly because it informs the Nigla, it informs the Birurim. Chassidus is an oir, Pnimius HaTorah, the face of Torah, is a light which informs and as the Rebbe explained, the struggle in the world that we do with our nigla. I mean, I'm talking more than I would like to. There's a mimer from the Rebbe Rashab, which the Rebbe gave us. He gave me my hand, called Kuntas Eitz Chaim. And I had a funny minig. It's like a really, really weird minig. It's not mamish of about a minig. But when the Rebbe gave me a kuntis, I tried to learn it. You know, the Rebbe gave me a book, I should learn it. Yeah? But he gave me 2 whole Tanyas. Yeah. So I started learning one Tanya, and as soon as I got the second one, I changed for the first one. I have 4 Tanyas from the Rebbe. It's a psid. It's just a psid. What do you do 4 Tanyas? It's one on my right hand, on my left hand, Einfus. The Rebbe, your parents, they're old enough, have so many sfanim from the Rebbe. But if you get one of them, you better learn them. Anyway, I learned the kuntis Eitz Chaim cover to cover. The Kuntas Eitz Chaim asks a simple question. Why are we learning topics in Chassidus that are not realistic in Avodah? We should only learn Yehuda Tato. We should only learn the level of Chassidus, which is realistic in Avodah. You know what he answers? That when you learn the higher in Yonim of Chassidus, it gives you light. And the light lightens the burden of the fight with the Yetzer Hara. The struggle of Yehuda Tato is made more gishmak by the learning of Chassidus. So in other words, in Chassidus itself you have this. There's the level of Chassidus which you use to fight with the Yetzer Hara. We have a one-word name for that idea. It's called the Book of Tanya. But you want the Chassidus not to become only a depressing fight. The oil of Chassidus, the ideas, the higher ideas of Chassidus inform the Nigla, inform the Milchama that it should be a little bit more peaceful. That's how Chassidus relates to the Milchama. So it may be true that when you juxtapose, when you link the Chassidus with the Nigla, the linking of the Chassidus with the Nigla may a little bit diminish the light of the Nigla, the Chassidus, and the Pnimius HaTorah, but that's what the Eibishter wants. And you know what? Last time I checked, first of all, he's in charge. Rule number 1, God's in charge. And rule number 2, this is going to be very uncomfortable, but it is true still, unfortunately. He really knows better. I mean, the Eibishter, what does he know? Yeah, but Reis best said we have to listen to him. Yeah? And if the Rebbe tells us that the Eibishter is right, then we should listen to him. Yeah? And always the Rebbe is going to tell us the Eibishter is right. Always, every single time. Okay, question 82. What 2 key words represent this idea? The answer is Dira B'Tachtainim. Alternatively, what 1 word represents this idea? That's the word Kavana. Inside it says Dira B'Tachtainim. So in Pedish Yudi has a fascinating idea, which is that when you learn Chassidus together with Nigla, when you learn Chassidus together with the struggle with the world, the Chassidus is diminished. But that's what he made it for. Everything is made for the Birurim. Everything is made for the fight. Everything is made for the Dira B'Tachtainim, including the light of people. Even Yankov Avinu, who didn't have a fight, is also created for the fight. He has to enlighten the fight. And that's what this Maimed is teaching us. Question 83, how do you explain this in the modern world? Very simple. If a shliach lived in a frum neighborhood, that he raised his kids in a Chassidish neighborhood, and the best of Lubavitch went into chinuch, I mean, it's a topic which you sit and talk about all day and all night. This is what you got to do. This is what you have to do. And save kol safe, it's the greatest. It's worth it. But Pshas Maaseh, you're going away from being involved in Ruchnis and in holiness to be involved, as the Rebbe said in the first Maimed, in Aleph Beis, and things like this. Why? It's what the Eibishter wants. And the truth of Chassidus is in doing this. The truth of Chassidus is in stepping away and doing what you have to do. Rabbi Lipska passed away. Her granddaughter sits here, right? I'm assuming she's not here. It's quite tragic. This was not expected. So someone sent around some clips of his. This is the story, girls. The guy was in a coma. This goes back 40 years, and a long time ago. So his wife called up Rabbi Chadakov, the office. Rabbi Klein picked up the phone, and she says to Rabbi Klein, Shalom, her husband's name is Shalom Bed, is in a coma. Rabbi Klein says he took her phone number to the hospital. Girls, the story is so crazy. It's crazy, Shabbat crazy. So he's about to call her back. Anyway, a few minutes later, the phone rings, and it's Rabbi Chadakov. Now, her husband's room is surrounded by nurses and doctors. The guy was in cold blue. He was not breathing. They have to use a shock treatment. She goes to the nurse's station. Rabbi Chadakov is on the line. Rabbi Chadakov says, Mrs. Lipsker, the Rebbe will reden mit euer Mann. The Rebbe wants to talk to your husband. And she says he's in a coma. And Rabbi Lipsker says, the Rebbe says he wants to talk to your husband. So she goes back to the room and they don't let her in. Whenever there's an emergency, they kick the family out. And she fights her way into the room. She gets them to transfer the voice from the nurse's station to the bed. She picks up the phone and she puts it up to her husband's ear, and the Rebbe gets on the phone and tells him, he's in a coma for heaven's sakes, that Professor Vanover is coming to Florida and he wants that he should introduce him to a number of professors in Florida to help his work. And Rabbi Lipsky says to the Rebbe, okay, well, as soon as I'm able to, I'll arrange it. The doctors freak out! This is a shliach. Chevre. This is a shliach. It was a guy who went into cardiac arrest, and he visioned them carrying him away from Yenneveld. You know that? His name is Deisenski from Long Island. He said, I asked him the story face to face. They were carrying him away from this world. He was finished. 45 minutes, he had no pulse. And the Rebbe stood in the Beis Rivka and said, I need him. He watched it. And he popped up. Boom! A trick. You think this is a game? The Rebbe is speaking to a man in a coma. Comatose. Cold blue. He's not breathing. There's no oxygen to his brain. Shalom, I got a job for you. You need the tzedek aliyah. This is so unbelievable. Here's the problem. When you go on shlichus, they don't tell you ahead of time, he's going to give you an extra 20 years or nachas from your children. Shlichus is hard. But this is unbelievable. I just told you 2 stories. There are others. The Rebbe said to his wife, I want to speak to your husband. But he's in a coma. Rabbi Chad, I don't understand you. The Rebbe said he wants to speak to your husband. So he brought the phone to his ear. The guy was completely finished. The Rebbe speaks to him and he answers. The Rebbe talks to you. You got to answer. You know, Tzemach Tzedek. A guy came to the Tzemach Tzedek that his father disappeared. But the kid was deaf and a mute. He couldn't speak. So he goes to the Tzemach Tzedek room. He had the Tzemach Tzedek in notes. He reads the notes. He says to the little boy, gaze on the mama, the tata that coming. Don't tell your mother your father's going to come home. The boy walks out of the Tzemach Tzedek room, goes up to his mother, hadn't spoken a word in his life, and he says to his mother, the Rebbe gives up to the mama, the tata that coming. The wife faints. So they tell the Tzemach Tzedek, the Moifis, you know what Tzemach Tzedek said? Nobody told me he doesn't speak. If I would have known, I wouldn't have told him to pass a message. Nobody told me he doesn't speak. You try that. So the Maimon says, it's a Mesiras Nefesh. You go away from where you are, and you involve yourself in something less. Not only is the kavan of niglet the betachtein, the kavan of pnimius atein is the betachtein. So yes, Chassidus is more beautiful when it's in a level which is above the world. When you bring it into the world, and maybe a little bit you diminish the light of the Chassidus, it's the kavan of the Eibishter. Now, Kinderlach, I got 20 minutes. 22 minutes to be exact. So I have a lot of time, a very little time to teach you a lot of material. The good news is, what I'm about to teach you is not on the test. But I want to do this. I want to give you a test Thursday, and we'll figure out. I want to teach Padre B'Shalom. This is a maimed that the Friedrich Rebbe said by the Rebbe's Chasana. B'chol Manayach L'mudi Hashem is a maimed that the previous Rebbe said by the Ufruf, the Rebbe said it twice, by the Ufruf of the Friedrich Rebbe, and the night before the Chasana, they had something which was called Chosan Mol, and the Friedrich Rebbe said the maimed a second time. There's a lot of Maimorim like this. And the Nekuda of the Maimir is, are you listening to me? Yeah? The biggest mistake that a person could make at the point of learning Torah is to understand it. You learn physics to understand it. You learn mathematics to understand it. You learn Torah for Torah to change all of you. If Torah stays in your brain, it's not Torah. Torah is not like other Chochmas. Chochma speaks to your brain. Now your brain wants to speak to your body, that's a separate thing. When you have information, it's in your head. Torah is not information. Torah is God's godliness and God's wisdom that speaks to the whole person. And when a chosin gets married, he gets an ufruf. It's aliyah, ufruf. And the Rebbe explains it, the Friedrich Rebbe explains in the Maimon Chol Banayach, what happens when you get an ufruf? You go up to a higher level. The point of that higher level, girls, is finish the sentence. To bring the Eibusha to a lower level. If Torah stays only in your brain, it's no good. Now, let's translate that in the language of this Maimon. This Maimon is about a fellow named Yankov Avinu. Yankov Avinu was a big tzaddik, and he served the Eibusha and Eifin of Shalom. And the Rebbe says we're supposed to a little bit imitate Yankov Avinu because somehow we're related and we're dependent. Yeah? But then the Rebbe says if it stays up there, it's no good. Yankov Avinu's Shalom by itself is not the kavanah. It has to come down and inform the Milchama. Then the Shalom is fulfilling its purpose. So when our Rebbe got married, the Friedrich Rebbe said a Maimir on this Teuchen. And there's a lot of Maimorim like this. Shalom Rav There's a whole bunch of Maimorim that speak to this Nekuda, that if Torah is only Torah, it's bad. Torah has to change the world. Right? All your children learn Torah, and there's a lot of peace to your children. You say this every day in davening. A Yid is not a Yid the way the Eibishter wants him because he's the Eibishter's child and he learns Torah. A Yid is the Yid the Eibishter wants him when he builds the world. Don't call him a son of the Eibishter, a boy noyach, a builder on behalf of the Eibishter. Which means Torah is b'shleimus when you step away from Torah and you bring it into the world. That's what the Rebbe said by the Rebbe's Chassidus. And that's the beginning and the end of this Maimon. So 80% of this Maimon took you in one direction. Shalom, 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 shalom. And the beginning and the end, which is the point of the Maimon, says the whole point of the shalom is that you change the Malchama. Because if the shalom remains removed from the Malchama, it's not the way the Eibusha made it. Okay? Let's learn. Page Kuf Tzadik Aleph. Okay? Go ahead.
Could it mean that Torah is kind of like Bachla Batala? If someone just learns Torah and then take it to practical and changes the world? Because we just said that it's no good. But just
I have to do a lot of iskafia now. What do they say in American? Right? You're not American, right? You are American. Don't judge. Don't judge. Don't judge. Look in the mirror. That all of your sons are limudi Hashem. They're learning the Torah of the Eibishter. And there's a lot of peace to your son. So the word banoyach is said twice. All of your sons are learned of the Torah of the Eibishter. There's a lot of peace to your sons. Just made more the Friedrich ever brings. The Maimon that begins with this pasuk. The Rebbe must have said this Maimon 6 times. The Maimon for the Rebbe you have 5 or 6 times. 1 or 2 are muga, and the rest are not muga. They're interesting Maimorim. Shabakun, Tris Drusha Chasna Tafesh Bei Tas, which the Friedrich Rebbe said by our Rebbe's Chasana. And the Rebbe liked those Maimorim, you know? The Rebbe probably said 30 Maimorim on the Maimorim of his week of Sheva Brachos. There's only one L'chadai, the only one, but there's a bunch of Omar Abeisha, Maidik Siv, Tzitkas Pizene Yisrael, Stok Ostak Hadash Baruch Yisrael, or Ravach. My brain, forget about it. The Rebbe has close to 30 Maimorim on the 6th Maimorim at the Frierdiker Rebbe said during the week of his Chasana. The Rav Shleim Banoach, the second half of the pasuk, which repeats a second time, that your sons have much peace. Shnei Pirushim, there's two interpretations. Ha'alef, the first pshat is simple. The Pirush v'Rav Shleim Banoach, the meaning is that your sons have a lot of peace, is Sheyi Yerei Shal. If you learn lots of Torah, you're going to have lots of peace. That's it. You start out as the Eibishter's son, and you end up as the Eibishter's son. That's it. You learn Torah, you enjoy Torah, Torah lifts you up, it makes you peaceful. It's a wonderful life, except for one thing. You're not doing what the Eibishter made you for. And Kipirish, HaMetzudas, David, V'Targum, that's the pshat of the Metzudas and the Targum. But there's Vahabeh, it's the second Pirush. And the second Pirush means you're learning Torah, and you're going to step away from that Torah to build the world. That's where the Rav Shalom is going to be. The Pirush, Rav Shalom Banoyach, the meaning of the repeat of the word Banoyach, and say that your children who learn Torah have much peace. Is Shayadei Banoyach, that through the Yiddish Kinder, Nasari B'Shalom Ba'elam, the peace is brought to the world. Jemaim Razal, like it says in the Siddur, which we say every day before Aleinu, Talmid Echacham Marbim Shalem, scholars, people who study Torah add peace, ba'olam, not to themselves, but to the world. Shedem, as it says, V'chol Banayach Lemudi Adeshem, all of your children learn the Eibishter's Torah. V'rav Shleim Banayach, there's much peace to your children. Now, if you would stop right here, the Talmidei Chacham are not bringing Shalom ba'olam, they're bringing Shalom to themselves. You learn Torah, you're involved in holiness, and you have this wonderful, wonderful life. Says the B'chazal, Al Tikri. Don't read that you have Shalom by sitting in the Beis HaMedrash and learning Torah. Bonoyach, that you're the Eibishter's son who's studying Torah, L'boinoyach, you step out of the Beis HaMedrash, however you do it, and you build the Eibishter's world, and that's where the Rav Shalom is. Al Tikri Bonoyach. Do not read the children of the Eibishter who sit in Beis HaMedrash and study Torah, L'boinoyach, that they build the world. Umevar v'hamaimer, and the Rebbe explains. That the children, the students of Torah, not just Hashem's children, but Hashem's builders, is Kemaim Erazal, that says in the Gemara, Mai Banoim, what is the meaning of Yiddish kinder being called builders? Elu Talmidei Chachamim, this means rabbis and scholars, Sha'oiskim B'Binyanei Shaleilam, that the business of giving creation to the world. Now, here's the point. For those of you who have lost the page, I'm 8 lines into the Maimed, 7 lines into the Maimed, at the end of the line. Page. Is there an extra Maimed? Here's an extra Maimed. Take it. I'm sorry. Umizeh Muvan, which teaches us. You listening? For a yid whose whole life is studying Torah, to bring peace to the world, look inside, is loy mitad hamayla the Talmidei Chachamim, parenthesis, limud ha-Torah, end of parenthesis, k'meishi mitad atzma. You want to bring a lot of peace into the world, you cannot sit in Beis Medrash. You sit in Beis Medrash, you bring a lot of peace to yourself. But the kavanah is to bring peace to the world, and in order to bring peace to the world, you have to figure out how to be in the Beis.
I thought it was a new minor.
Oh, okay. In order to bring peace to the world, you have to somehow step out of the Beis HaMedrash. You're looking inside? Yeah? The Talmud Chacham, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Gaon, the Chassid, the Tzaddik is building the world. Because when they learn Torah, the world is fixed. Now, you can fix the world in 3 ways. You can fix the world through shlichus, that's called birurim. You can fix the world through tefillah, which is a much higher idea. And you fix the world through Torah. But on all 3 levels, you're not staying in the esoteric realm. You're coming down to the madrege where you have to struggle with the world. V'zehu, and this is the pshat. V'chol b'nayich lemud yad Hashem, all of the Eibishter's children are lemud Hashem, are being taught the Torah of the Eibishter. And then we say Rav Shleim Banoach, there's a lot of peace to those children. Shebevar kanshnia. You understand 2 points. See, if you translate Rav Shleim Banoach as the Eibishter's children, it's the same thing. You learn Torah and you have peace. Torah is peace, your peace, you live in a peaceful world, the Machon. But if you translate Atikah Banoach and Leboinoach, it's 2 separate things. Number 1, you learn Torah, it's good for you. Number 2, when you use your Torah to elevate the world, and you become a partner in the Eibishter's creation, that's a whole nother thing. And that's, finish the sentence, the kavanah. That's the kavanah. The first half of the pasuk says, all of your sons are studying the Torah, the Pirusha. It means Lemudi Avaya. What does it mean to be a student of Shem Avaya? The Alfin B'Iraisa Avaya. This is the Targum. We learn the Torah of Avaya, which is Hamayla, the Talmidei Chacham Mitadatzmam. Sitting and learning Torah as an endeavor unto itself makes you Banayich and Lemudi Avaya. It's a wonderful life. And there's a lot of peace involved in learning Torah. But it's everything minus one simple point. Why the Eibishter made us. And afterwards, he's not only a son of the Eibishter, you're a builder for the Eibishter. Which is, Habir or the Elam, you correct the world. You build the world. And Dafke, then you have Ribi Shalom, a lot of peace. And you bring the peace not just to yourself, but you bring your peace ba'olam to the world. So one person learns Torah and he's studying Torah, and all there is Torah. Another person learns Torah, and from that Torah the world is corrected and uplifted. Maybe that means that his Torah goes down a couple of notches. Maybe. But this is how you become boinoyech, a builder, and how you fix the Eibishter's world, and you bring the Eibishter's peace, and avshal, much peace, not just to yourself, but to the whole world. Ubesiyam HaMaimed, the Frierdiker Rebbe at the end of his Maimed says, now remember, this is a Maimed that the Frierdiker Rebbe is saying when our Rebbe is getting married. And in case you didn't know this, the Frierdiker Rebbe was our Rebbe's Rebbe. Yeah? And the Rebbe is saying a Maimed for our Rebbe and his chuppah. What's the Maimed about? The Maimed is about the kavanah. Avos mendav dich, what you're needed for. So all of the Maimorim, you should know, have a similar, each Maimon of Chassan in a different way speaks to the Rebbe Shlichus. It really does. You see it clearly. When he did just learn Torah, but he learns Torah the kind of way that it elevates the world, or to speak in the language of the class from last Thursday, he learns Chassidus in the kind of way that it informs the Nigle, even if as a result the Chassidus is a little bit diminished. They become banoim, builders, ha'oiskim bebinyane shel elam, that are involved in giving construction, order to the Eibishter's world, and ayedezeh yikuyim gam bohem, then they also benefit from Rav Shlomo Berech. First of all, when you learn Torah, there's peace. Second of all, when you learn Torah the kind of way that you elevate the world, you elevate the world and bring peace to the world. But then there's a third of all. And the third of all is you bring peace to yourself. In other words, it's not just it's not just a sacrifice that you have to go away from your union to elevate the world, because this is the kavanah and you lose out. In the end, there's lav shalom to the Talmidei Chachamim themselves. How? Are you on shlichus? Huh?
Yes.
So how could you ask that question? Could you imagine if you weren't on shlichus? You'd be a crown Eitzer. I really see it. So you still have your question?
It seems like we're talking about two different things, though.
We're talking about two things. One that's pretty and peaceful, like the little kid with that little blanket that she never lets go of. And the other is much more complicated. And it's not like a blanket, it's a grown-up blanket. It's got holes in it, and sometimes it's not so comfortable, but it's real. There's no other way to live. Manis Friedman spoke to I had a whole bunch of guests over the weekend because it was Shabbos night. He spoke to the Med of Shabbos, and he said blasphemy. He said, Mamash of course, he said that the most important thing in a person's life is not to be loved. He said that in America, the most important thing in a person's life is that he should be wanted or needed. And he told the story how a Yid walked up to the Rebbe to tell him Shalom Aleichem on the street, Nishka Lubavitcher. And his friend said to him, don't go over to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, don't tell him hello. He says, why not? He says, I'm warning you, don't tell him hello. He walks up to the Rebbe, he tells the Rebbe Shalom Aleichem. The Rebbe asks him where he's from. He says, from Cleveland. He says, there's a problem with the mikveh in Cleveland. Maybe you fix it. So he goes back to his friend. He says, the Rebbe just gave me a job. His friend says, I told you not to go over there. So the Rebbe's supposed to be a mean guy. There's no greater purpose in the person's life than when he has a purpose. That's the Rav Shalom for the Talmud Chacham also. It's not a blanket for a 2-year-old that smells nice because you watched it in the dryer with the conditioner. It's a deeper in you. What you should see, children to your children, that should be shalom for Yidden also. Translates to them. When a person goes away from being a Talmud Chacham who only learns Torah, and he engages in elevating the world through his Torah, when the Talmud Chacham engages in learning Torah in the kind of way that elevates the world, Nimshach, it brings Ribu Shalom, much peace, Gam Talmidei Chachamim Asmam, to the Talmidei Chacham himself, which is the Pshat of the Metzudas in the Targum. In other words, 3 steps. Step 1, you learn Torah for yourself, that brings you peace. Step 2, you go away from being a son of the Eibishter, who sits at his feet and takes, and you become a builder on behalf of the Eibishter, and you bring peace to the world. And number 3, ultimately you bring a deeper peace to yourself. Not a simple peace, not a higher peace, a deeper peace. Now go to the last page, go turn over the stack. Okay, what did we just learn in Perek Yud Kedalach? If you think about the Maimer started off with Yankov Avinu, remember? Yankov Avinu was at peace. Then we apply Yankov Avinu to ourselves and we say we should have a little bit of peace, remember? How did the Rebbe finish? The Rebbe finished when you learn Chassidus. To inform your nigla, it takes away something from the peace of Chassidus. But, finish the sentence, please. That's the kavanah. So the Rebbe v'zehu. This is the pshat in the pasuk with which the Maimer began. We started off talking about Torah being shalom. And we talk about the idea that the shalom of Torah has to inform the milchama of a lower level than Torah, whatever the case is. And even though it's a yerida, it's the kavanah. This is what the Frierdiker Rebbe meant when he said this Maimer v'chol b'nayach limud yad Hashem. All of the Eibish's children studied Eibish's Torah. But then it says, V'rav shleim b'noyich, there's much peace brought to the world through b'noyich. And ultimately there's much peace brought b'noyich to themselves. He translates, Kol b'nayich limud Hashem. Step 1, all children are engaged in Torah. The Alf and Beiraisa Da'avaya, they learn the Eibish's Torah is Mailas Limud HaTorah. That's just the strength of the Torah. In other words, when you're being like Yankov Avinu, Ubefrat, Bepnimius HaTorah, especially when you Chassidus, Oiraisa Da'avaya, Teravaya. What's the next 4 words? K'mo shehi mitzad atzma. You separate yourself from the world. You're studying Pnimius HaTorah, and you're in a wonderful and peaceful place, except for one thing. The kavanah fehlt sich nicht aus. What you're needed for is missed. Then says, V'rav shleim b'noyach, atika b'noyach ala b'noyach. You go away from your learning Chassidus as it is by itself, and at least you use it to inform your nigla, which means that the Chassidus is being a little bit diminished to affect a change in the Torah which is provided the world. And then, Atika B'noyach, you're no longer just a son of the Eibishter who sits at Hashem's feet and takes from the Eibishter, doesn't give. Ela Boynoyach, you become a builder, which is Birur Ba'olam Shayadei Esek HaTorah. You bring peace to the world by correcting the world at your own expense. That's the second point. Number 3, V'kivon Shayadei Zeh. And when you go away from learning Torah by yourself, which is the first half of the pasuk, to learning Torah the kind of way which is engaging with the world, which is the second half of the pasuk. Habirash the Esek HaTorah. You use the Torah to correct the world. Use Pnimius HaTorah to inform the niglas correcting the world. Nasa aliyas HaTorah mekameshi mitzad atzma. The Torah, by going down into the world, the Torah has an aliyah to a higher level. Lachein, therefore, mevayer u'misayim b'hamayim. The Rebbe finishes. Frierdiker Rebbe finishes. When a Yid stops just being a Talmud Chacham and a Beis HaMedrash, and he uses the Torah to mevader the world by building the world, to correct the Eibishter's world, you reach the third madrega. It's realized in the Talmidei Chachamim themselves that there's a shalom added to the Talmud Chacham. Those are 3 steps. Step 1, the shalom of Torah, like Yankov Avinu, which is removed from the world. Step 2, you go away from that Torah. Use that Pnimius to inform the Nigla, which takes away from your Shalom, but it adds Shalom to the world. And step 3 is that you see the Shalom. Now here's what's interesting, girls. you cannot deny that what we just said is written here. I didn't make it up. I didn't adulterate it. I didn't help the Rebbe. I read and I translated the Bible. Huh? Okay, I'll see you.